Hello, and welcome to another episode of Adamo Baseball, where I'm your host, Adamo. And in this episode, I'm going to be breaking down the Seattle Mariners. You may hear me refer to them as the M's, because, growing up, I would read M's a lot, referring specifically to the Mariners. I don't know why they called them that, but it kind of works. So, yes, this is coffee. And yes, yay. So, this is actually kind of an odd team to try and break down. I'm picking them to finish last because I think there's really too much on the wrong end, outweighing too much on the good end. There are positives on this team, which, before I started researching, I didn't expect to see that. And I'm actually kind of excited to see some of the players on this team. But, yeah, like I said, I think that they'll still finish last in the division, but they might not. I remember a couple of days ago I was talking about the Rangers and how we shouldn't be surprised if they finish last. They're not a great team. And honestly, looking at what the Mariners have, it's very possible that Seattle could jump Texas. And they might actually be able to move up a little bit. I don't think they're going to finish as high as third. They're not going to be able to they're not going to be able to, they're not going to jump the Astros, okay? Seattle's roof is not as high as Houston's floor. So, but if this team can build on the young talent that they have, because they got a lot of raw talent, if they can build on that, which Seattle has come out and said, we're cutting the whole win now mentality. We're going to try and build for the future thing. They could legitimately, not this year, not next year, but 3 or 4 years down the road, they could actually be a winner. It's not going to be soon. So don't get your hopes up for that happening this year. But I always like surprise teams, and this team actually has the chance to be a surprise team. But a lot of things have to go right. So, now that I've led into that, go ahead and get into it. Leading off, J.P. Crawford, shortstop. So what I saw, he actually is a pretty good leadoff guy. There actually have been quite a few leadoff guys that I've seen throughout my research for each team that actually does deserve to be a leadoff guy, and J.P. Crawford is no different. He's not the best with the bat, but apparently he's got a lot of speed. So whenever he does get on base, he actually can move, which is one of the underrated things about baseball. People don't really think of runners in baseball, but you need speed to be able to steal second base, or there's a deep line drive into left field. It may not go over the wall. It may hit the wall. It may hit the warning track. You need a speedy guy to be able to get 2 bags instead of just 1. So, yeah, a lot of potential for him to get better with the bat and to actually be a successful leadoff guy. Second, Mitch Haniger. He's been kind of synonymous with the M's for the last couple of years out in right field. In fact, he and Kyle Seager are kind of the two sticking points. As in, you're a Seattle Mariner, you're probably one of those two guys if you've been there for longer than 2 years. And it's justified. Batting third, Kyle Lewis, center field. This is one of the guys I'm actually kind of excited about. So he hasn't played a lot and doesn't have a lot of at-bats. But of what there is, I got a hunch. I got a hunch this guy could be good. I don't know why. I just got a hunch. He may not make the All-Star game, but I just got a feeling that this guy is going to be good. And so, yeah. He actually could end up being a pretty good 3 guy in the lineup. Batting cleanup, Kyle Seager, third base. Typically, you'd actually put a guy like him more in second in the lineup, but he is kind of their best option right now. So you kind of got to go with it. Batting fifth. This is an interesting case, and he's the other guy that I'm kind of excited about. There's one pitcher as well, but Tom Murphy, catcher. You don't see a lot of catchers batting fifth. And he's got some power. Last year was his first full season, 2020 being 2020. So he was in Colorado for 4 years. He was not a starter. Like, he'd have like 8 at-bats for a whole season, maybe 20 at most. Last year in Seattle was his first go, and he actually made the most of it. He had 18 home runs, and his batting average was, I want to say it was somewhere in the 250 range, which for a catcher is pretty good. But yeah, you hit a home run in a 30-year games played, it could be good. Like, he actually could have that power that you want for a 5 guy, so he may actually end up batting cleanup. And if it turns out that he is that type of hitter, and he can keep that going, then you can build a franchise around a guy like that. You can. You can make that your centerpiece because your catcher is your team leader. He is. He's that guy who controls everything on that field. Everyone tries to compare quarterbacks to pitchers. Not only is that not a 1-to-1 ratio, actually your catcher is closer to a quarterback on the field because they're the ones that are making all the decisions most of the time, outside of the managerial staff. Batting sixth, Ty France, designated hitter. All right, so the next 4 guys, including Ty France, there's not a lot to go on. This is where your young, raw talent is, which, generally speaking, your young, raw guys are going to be at the bottom of the lineup. So it makes sense that, yeah, this actually could be, they could be all good, they could all be crap. I'm one for optimism, and I hope that they all work out. But Ty France is a designated hitter. I really don't have much to go on. He's batting sixth. Maybe he works out, maybe he doesn't. Batting seventh, Dylan Moore, second base. You typically don't expect a lot of really good hitting out of your second baseman. There are exceptions. Altuve, recently retired Dustin Pedroia. Yeah, there are exceptions, but generally speaking, you don't expect your second baseman to bat cleanup. So, yeah. Batting eighth, Evan White, first base. Again, not a lot to go on. And batting ninth, Jake Fraley, left field. I think last year was his first season, maybe 2019. And his stats really weren't that good. But then again, he really didn't play that much. So this season probably will be our first real dose of Fraley to actually get a chance to feel just how good of a left fielder he is. Or hitter. Rotation. This is the weirdest rotation I've probably ever seen. Normally, you don't see a rotation of such extremes. So they got a 6-man rotation. Top of the rotation, Marco Gonzalez. So he started, first 4 or 5 years of his career, really not that great. But last 2 or 3 years, he actually has really picked it up. He figured out what his problems were, and he's just nailed it. 2019, he got out to that super hot 5-0 start, and yeah, he lost some games after that, but since then, he actually has done a pretty decent job of winning. He actually is a pretty good pitcher. So he actually is an ace. He is the kind of guy you want number 1 in your rotation. I mean, if you got Kershaw, you're going to put Kershaw in front of him. But, unless you got a future Hall of Famer, Marco Gonzalez is a pretty good 1 guy. Number 2, another 1 guy, James Paxton. He's back in Seattle. He's basically loaned out to New York the last 2 years to try and get the Yankees a pennant. Doesn't work. I'm not crying. But, yeah, he's back in Seattle, and he's been pretty good throughout his career. If he keeps going at the rate that he is, we might be talking about him getting into the Hall of Fame one day. I know those are pretty big words, but I won't say it's impossible. He's one of those guys that's kind of gone under the radar because he spent most of his career in Seattle, and he actually could end up being that guy. 3, this is a guy you normally put 5th in the rotation. Chris Flexen. He has not had a great career thus far. Most of his seasons, he's got an ERA of over 5. I wouldn't put him in there. Pitching 4th. This one's actually interesting. Justice Sheffield. He's the one I'm actually excited about. There's not a lot to go on for him, but he's that other guy. I got a hunch. I just got a feeling like he's just going to have a breakout year. Marco Gonzalez, James Paxton, and you throw Justice Sheffield in there. If those 3 guys play to their full potential, maybe Seattle can take 3rd in the division. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I still think they're going to finish last. But the opportunity is there if he has that breakout year along with some of the other guys. Pitching 5th, Yusei Kikuchi. I legit slowed it down so that I wouldn't butcher it any worse than I probably did. He actually is about 5th. He actually has a high upside, but he has a low downside too. And pitching 6th, Justin Dunn. I don't even remember what I read. Seriously, if you're pitching 6th in a rotation, there's probably a reason for that. So, the rotation, again, high, low, lows. If I can keep that on the screen. Like that. And if one of their great pitchers doesn't pitch great, whereas if one of their lower end pitchers pitches a lot better, they may end up surprising some people because they usually play pretty well in April, just the Mariners franchise in general. And I think that pitching staff is what that's going to be predicated on. I don't think that they'll still be in it at the All-Star break, but they may make a punch in April. Look out for that. Then we get to the bullpen. This is why I think Seattle's still going to finish last. Closer, Rafael Montero. He's the kind of guy that you pick up if you got nobody else available. The rest of their bullpen, Matt McGill and Kendall Graveman. There's not a lot to hope for there, honestly. They're not good. They're not good. So this is my overview for Seattle. As a whole, I think that they should have some goals for this season. They're trying to rebuild their farm system, that's no secret. But also their team president just got caught admitting to, what's it called? I can't remember what the right term is, but basically it's player manipulation, or a type of player manipulation where you basically keep guys in the minors longer so that you don't have to pay them for a full season or have to worry about contractual issues. So much to the point where it's actually really bad in all circles. So they may be having to play through some drama there. Fortunately, at least to start off, Washington's not one of the states that's relaxed mask mandates. So they're probably not going to have fans in the stands to start out. So they're not going to have to deal with booze at home. And by the time they do let fans in, that'll probably have died down. So that's my opinion. So I think goals for the season, realistically, they can finish fourth. Specifically, not finish last. I think that they can have 3 All-Stars on this team. They really can. Develop at least one, if not 2 of those younger guys for the future that they got in the bottom 4 of their rotation, and maybe one of their starters. I think if they can do those things, it will be a successful year. It's not a 100-loss season. Closer to 93, 94 losses, which is not good. But I didn't pick them to finish here because I thought that they were going to be good. There is room for optimism. They do have players that are good. They do have guys that can last. They do have guys that can take them forward. I don't necessarily know that they will, but I think that they do. And 2024, 2025, we may be talking about the M's again. We may be saying, hey, this team is a legit playoff contender. And I'd be lying if I said I didn't want to see Seattle play in the World Series one day. As it stands right now, Seattle is the oldest franchise never to host a World Series game. 1977, they joined the league the exact same year as the Toronto Blue Jays, and the Seattle Mariners have never hosted a World Series game. So, it's not going to happen this year, next year, the year after. But further down the road, they actually could acquire some talent that could make them a legit contender. And those are my thoughts on the Seattle Mariners. If you'd like to let me know your thoughts, you can do so in the comments down below. Or if you're listening to my podcast, you can do so on Patreon at Adamo Baseball Podcast, no hyphen. With that being said, thank you for listening. Cheers until next time.